alongside the Wisconsin head coach Kelly Sheffield, now here at the 2024 AVCA Convention in Louisville. And well, Coach, I want to dive right into some of the hot button topics right now in college volleyball. And so with this massive growth that we've seen in the last 2 to 3 years, is there one thing that you could put your finger on that has equated to it, or is it just a collection of the progress that many people have put their effort into to see fans, to see the players now collectively adding social media influences and all of that? What have you kind of seen it as being the trigger point?
People have gotten out of their comfort zones. I would say getting into bigger arenas has been really important. Coaches being able to get out of a small venue, get into the larger venues, the basketballs, the footballs, stadiums, and TV has responded. They've been along every step of the way, which has been really, really big. But I would say that we get. Coaches tend to get a little fearful at times to do things new. You lean on routine a little bit, and getting outside and into different venues, I think, has been a really big issue, big deal.
It was something with the Kohl Center that you started a few years ago, and it has now triggered this avalanche of attendance records and almost a competition in a way. Is it something that you see continuing? Is there a way, not even talking about football stadiums, but maybe adding level of competition early in the season, seeing that the AVCA is now starting their year with a pre-season tournament in Lincoln next year with 8 teams. How do you see that continuing to grow over the next decade?
It'll continue to grow because the fans are responding to it. The administrations are getting behind it, and television is intrigued by it. And so it'll continue to go. I think we'll play, I think we're going to play about 5 matches in the Kohl Center in our basketball arena. We've been fortunate enough the couple times that we played there, we've been 18,000 people. The fans have responded, and so our administration's excited. They want to do more of it, and we're going to do it.
So for coaches watching that are maybe at a low D1 or a D2 school, NAIA, something of those regards, and they want to try to make a difference with their athletic department, what's a good first step for them to have that conversation with either the AD or the associate or SWA? Yeah,
I mean, I've been at those schools as well, and you're doing everything. It's awesome. It's tiring, but you're waving the flag, you're waving the banner. You've got to get, you've got to get out in the community. You've got to get your players out in the community. They've got to become invested in your players. You've got to work the social media element. You need an advocate in the athletic department, in administration that is going to believe in your vision and help give you some of those opportunities to knock the door down a little bit. But you got to sell. I mean, you've got to be able to sell. It's more than just training, as we know. It's more than just recruiting. You've got to get people in the door and create value of saying, here, I want to spend 2 or 3 hours of my night watching you guys. And so the product is really important, but you got to be able to sell it as well.
So with sales comes a very tough topic to talk about, and that is this NIL movement into college volleyball, into all college sports. When did you first start to get the inklings that this is going to be a legitimate reality in this world in the last 2 to 3 years, and how was the process for you? What did you start doing? Did you start trying to find boosters or an NIL collective head? Walk us through the whole process for Wisconsin.
Well, I've known for a while because every morning, legitimately, I start my morning by reading D1 Ticker. And so you've got all the information out there and a lot of stuff, and you can see where we're headed, and you better be out in front of it, of just being able to have a plan. And so, but it changes so much, right? I mean, this landscape, it's an earthquake that is below our feet. And, but it's, I don't know if I answered all your question there, but I've known for a while. It's an unbelievable time right now in college athletics.
And so I'm not going to skirt the obvious parts, right? You are a part of one of the bigger NIL collectives in this sport.
Yeah.
And so how did that start for you? Did you go out and try to find donors, or was it something inside your athletic department?
Well, there's two things. So we're kind of, for the past couple of years, we've been in NIL, right? And so you're in a community that, that draws the fan base that we have. We're averaging over 7,000 fans in the UW Fieldhouse. And so there's a lot of opportunities in the city of Madison. It connects it real well. But now we're about ready to phase into revenue sharing, right? And so that's a totally different animal, a totally different beast that we're guessing is going to get final approval, I think, in April and get started in July. But yeah, we're doing a lot of meeting with people that hopefully want to invest in our sport. We're inviting them on road trips. We're having lunches and dinners with them and different types of events where, the booster club concept is kind of merging. I would say it's been a challenge, I think, for a lot of athletic departments because, you've got the athletic department that's looking to raise money for facilities, but then you've got the football coach that's out trying to raise funds for NIL for their program, and the men's and women's basketball and volleyball and yada, yada, yada. And it's almost like it's felt like everybody's been almost competing against each other, which I don't think is necessarily a really healthy thing to be doing. So that's one of the things as we're getting into the revenue sharing, it becomes a little bit less dependent on donors, a lot less fighting over scraps or whatever with other coaches. And, it's a massive change, but I think it's going to be a lot healthier.
Do you see there being a potential cap, like a salary cap for this NIL world, or is it just exponentially going to grow until we see millions and millions in volleyball for maybe one player even?
Well, what are we at? 20 million for if you opt in per school if they decide to do that. Then the athletic department has to decide how do they want to break that up, and it seems like people are choosing 3, 4, or 5 sports to be able to do that. Obviously, the bulk of that is going towards football, the people that have football programs, and then it's getting kind of broken up accordingly to whatever the plan is for the athletic department. That number is going to continue to go up is what we're being told each year. And, revenues and TV contracts continue to go up. So where does it end? I don't know. But, man, as a guy who was eating ramen noodles and bouncing checks to pay for Domino's pizzas, the fact that these guys are bringing in the money that they are is a pretty good deal.
Yep, sitting here with Kelly Sheffield with D1 Ticker Coaches.wire. And so you had the nice plug with D1 Ticker because what the big movement with this conversation that we're having today with all of these coaches is towards this house settlement and this revenue sharing that is going to alter the landscape of our sport.
Yeah.
How would you go about trying to explain it to a student athlete, let's say a 16-year-old in high school that is not familiar with the house settlement, not familiar with revenue sharing? What's your first step in explaining what this new era is?
I mean, essentially, it's pay to play, right? If you're one of those schools, it's not a lot of schools. It's not a lot. There's a small portion that are even participating in revenue sharing as an athletic department, and then where does volleyball fit in? That number is even way smaller. And so there'll be a wide range of opportunity for student athletes at different schools. It will absolutely change the landscape of our sport. There's just no doubt about it. If you are, if you are in the Big Ten or the SEC or something, and the majority of the schools are participating in revenue sharing, and you're a school that is not, it's going to be really hard to get access to the NCAA tournament. How do you get the talent? I think it's, but it'll take a few years to probably settle out, and but we've seen other power programs in our sport. When you're thinking about Pacific and maybe Long Beach State, I mean, these were some of the top programs in the history of our sport, and times have changed with power conferences, and some of those schools have kind of been left behind. And I think we'll see even greater shift in the next 5 or 6 years.
I think there's no doubt that the role of the athletic department is so important now, and how invested they are and how interested in women's volleyball or gymnastics or track and field some of them might be. So one of the other big moves is this roster limit, moving down. Some teams at 22, 23 of coaches that I talked to here. Some of them were at 16, like Arizona was, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. What do you see as being maybe an advantage and then a disadvantage of that hard ceiling of 18 players?
Yeah. I mean, this year we had 16. We've had years, I think, coming out of COVID that we were like at 20 or something. We're being asked to carry 18. And so that would be more than what we've had. We're being asked at our school. So there'll be schools that will be asked to be right at that number. There'll be others that will have a little bit of flexibility. How do you manage all this revenue sharing and roster limits with Title IX? And there's still a lot of things, a lot of court decisions that have got to be made as well. But on our end, where the roster limit is, that's where we're going to be trying to be.
Well, with that comes this question of whether walk-ons will be a part of women's college volleyball moving forward. Do you still see there a role for it, or now there's an opportunity where all 18 players can be on scholarship? So is that something that we're going to see moving forward, or will there still be half scholarships and maybe walk-ons as well?
That's kind of the beauty of kind of where things are, is that you can give 18, but most won't. So I think you'll still have some walk-on things. It'll be, we're now going into being able an equivalency sports. And so that allows us to break up scholarships, give partials where we've never been able to do that. So I don't know. I think some of that is still to be decided. I think you'll see some that will scholarship their entire roster, and then others that will go with something that's probably similar to what we have right now.
Well, always fun to have kind of breaking news. So I want to talk about things from a immediacy perspective this week, and it's only going to be about one player right now, but I want to open it up as a hypothetical. But a judge ruled that one Division I college football player who played in junior college, his eligibility in junior college is not going to transfer over to his NCAA. So he will have 4 full years, and now there is all this conjecture. Is this going to spread to the other sports? What do you see as an advantage to using the JUCO, the NJCAA level as that pipeline where you still get 4 full years in the NCAA? Or do you see it being a disadvantage and maybe a tough competition for some of these high school seniors to compete at the same level field with a 21 or 20-year-old?
I don't know, welcome to life, right? I mean, when you go out in the workplace, you're competing against people that have probably been in the workforce there for 20 or 30 years. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a strategy of high school players now wanting to go to junior college for the first 2 years, get a little bit better, and then by the time that they're done with their 4 years of, for the 4-year schools, now they've got their master's paid for. And so I've been a proponent of every player gets 5 years to play 5 years and no waivers at all, and so that they could get their master's paid for. This is just kind of another way of getting there. And so I don't know. It's not a bad gig. How much will that factor into our sport? Will it be sport dependent? I don't know. Will it be? Will we see a lot of volleyball players? I don't know, but there is a lot of opportunity.
One thing I also have heard a lot about, and the question has circled around morals and morality, and whether the new era of this sport with the pay for play or the revenue sharing will muddy the waters of the moral level of it. Have you thought at all about giving someone $100,000 versus having someone else not get any money, and is it still an even playing field to get a starting spot, or do you get into that levels where it's like, hey, if she's making this much and she's not making anything, is it unfair at that first practice of their new season?
I think those are waters that all coaches are trying to get figured out. We're about ready to get into our opening round of the NCAA tournament, and the day before I've got a 2-hour meeting with a former general manager of the NFL. And this is some of the things that we were talking about, is what are some of the lessons learned from that is applicable to us, and what are some of the potholes that I can't possibly see. And although it's a little bit different because everybody's getting paid in those pro leagues, where here you're going to have a percentage of the people that are the teams that are participating in revenue sharing. There's going to be some players that are making money, and there's going to be others that don't. How do you have a culture in a locker room where it's still healthy? I think that's something that there's very few things that I spend more of my time thinking about, because culture is obviously really important, and we just made it interesting if you're not managing it the right way.
Is the role of head volleyball coach right now the toughest that it's ever been in the landscape of this sport?
Yeah, but I would say about it, I mean, every sport head coach would say that. We're spending less time on the fields or the courts or whatever than probably what we have in the past. That's where maybe the most important things we do is hire good people. I mean, that's probably, I'm fortunate to be able to have a staff that's been around for a long time, but how critical that is right now, because all the other things that are pulling on you, this being certainly one of them. You know, right after the season, there used to be a downtime. It was nuts with the hours and the days right after our season, immediately with player meetings, immediately trying to, some of the things that we're talking about, the opening of the portal, some of the players that are thinking about going to the portal while we're still playing, because the portal opened a few days earlier. So we got to do something with our portal window. The portal window is really, really tough. We've got to do, there's a lot of things to clean up.
And then you talk about hirings. Was there a conversation in the beginning of this that said, we want to get some sort of financial advisor, or, some schools have an NIL collective supervisor that's trying to walk you through financial decisions? It's tough because you can't tell a human being, hey, you have to follow these rules, but there's got to be some sort of level of handholding when you have an 18, 19-year-old that's making six figures. And be able to help them where, if you're wise about it, this can really help you down the road. If you're unwise about it, then you'll have nothing left. And so, I think that's part of it. Athletic departments being able to have people around these athletes to help them continue to make good decisions, because at the end of the day, that's one of the businesses that we're in, is trying to help young people grow. Coach, really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
He's Kelly Sheffield. I'm Daniel Gillman. Once again, this is Coaches.wire with D1 Ticker.